Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like if you enjoy it. Your support means a lot to us and helps the channel grow. Thank you so much. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The Invisible Companion. At times, it feels as though there's someone else living inside you. Not in the sinister sense of split personalities, but more like an invisible force that occasionally darkens your mood, nudges you into unwanted actions, or brings about a sense of guilt and shame that you can't quite explain. This feeling, as if a shadow is always following you, yet you try not to acknowledge it, turning away, pretending it doesn't exist. It's that inner discomfort, that nagging sense of incompleteness or vague unease that can arise even when everything on the outside seems perfectly fine. You might have success in your career, build meaningful relationships, yet still, there's something inside you, a quiet tension, a sense that a part of you remains unsatisfied, unrecognized. It may show up as sudden irritability, unexplained apathy, a tendency to criticize yourself, or a painful reaction to traits you see in others. The Swiss psychiatrist and founder of analytical psychology, Carl Jung, called this invisible part of our psyche the shadow. It is a kind of repository for those aspects of our personality that we consider unacceptable, shameful, undesirable, or even dangerous. These are the traits, impulses, and desires that we painstakingly suppress, hiding them deep within, afraid to show them to the world or even to ourselves. Imagine an iceberg. Its visible part, rising above the water's surface, is our conscious I, our persona, the face we present to the world. But the much larger, hidden part below the water is our unconscious, and a significant portion of it is occupied by the shadow. And while we might try to ignore this submerged part, it exerts a tremendous, often unconscious influence on our behavior, our feelings, and our relationships. We spend an enormous amount of energy keeping our shadow imprisoned. We control our words and actions, fearing that the negative traits we believe we have might push others away or ruin our image as the good person. But the paradox is that the more we suppress our shadow, the more powerful and destructive it becomes. The unacknowledged and unresolved aspects of our personality don't simply disappear. They retreat into the shadow, where they subtly influence our lives, emerging in unexpected and often unpleasant forms. I invite you on a journey into the unexplored realms of your own soul. I will not frighten you with images of monsters lurking in the dark. Rather, I will attempt to shed light on the corners of your inner world that you may have been avoiding. We will turn to the wisdom of Carl Jung to understand the nature of our shadow, explore how it forms and how it affects our lives. And most importantly, we will talk about how to stop fighting with our shadow and begin accepting it as an integral part of ourselves, so that we can attain true wholeness and inner harmony. Chapter 2. The Face We Show the World. Man does not become better by shining, but by becoming whole, Carl Jung wrote. But before we can reach this wholeness, we must first understand the masks we consciously or unconsciously wear in order to interact with the external world. Jung called this social role the persona, from the Latin persona, meaning the mask of an actor. The persona is a kind of compromise between our individuality and society's expectations. It is the image we wish to project onto others, the role we play in various social contexts, at work, in the family, among friends. The persona is necessary for our social interaction. It helps us adapt to societal norms, establish connections, and fulfill certain social functions. Without any mask, we would be too vulnerable and would not be able to interact effectively with those around us. However, the problem arises when we begin to overly identify with our persona, when we start believing that this social role is our true self. Imagine an actor who becomes so absorbed in their role that they forget who they truly are outside the stage. Something similar can happen to us. We can become so accustomed to the role of a successful professional, a caring parent, a cheerful friend, or a responsible citizen that we begin to suppress aspects of our personality that do not fit into this image. Feelings, desires, and character traits that we consider inappropriate for our persona are repressed into the shadow. Unfortunately, there is a danger that the persona becomes the only reality, and everything else is pushed into the shadow, becoming unconscious, Jung warned. When we overly identify with our mask, we lose touch with our authentic self, with our true needs and desires. We begin to live according to others' expectations rather than our own inner truth. This leads to internal discord, a sense of falseness, and the vague anxiety we discussed in the first chapter. For example, a person who strives to appear always strong and independent, their persona, may repress feelings of vulnerability and the need for support, their shadow. Over time, this suppressed vulnerability may manifest as bursts of anger, depression, or relationship problems. Or a woman who tries to be always kind and accommodating, her persona, may suppress her aggression and the need for self-assertion, her shadow, leading to feelings of helplessness and chronic dissatisfaction. Excessive identification with the persona can be especially dangerous for creative individuals. Fearing criticism or misunderstanding, they may suppress their boldest and most original ideas, trying to conform to accepted standards. As a result, their creative potential remains unrealized, and they experience a sense of inner emptiness. Take a moment to reflect on your own life. What roles do you play? How comfortable are you in these roles? Are there aspects of your personality that you try to hide from others? What feelings are difficult for you to express? The answers to these questions could be the first clues to understanding your own persona and the shadow that lies behind it. Becoming aware of your persona is an important step toward integrating the shadow. This does not mean that we must abandon all social roles. Rather, it is a call to recognize that our persona is merely a mask, one of many facets of our multifaceted personality. And behind this mask lies a deeper, more authentic essence, which includes not only the qualities we approve of, but also those we strive to ignore. Chapter 3. The Shadow, the Repository of the Repressed. Where darkness reigns, there is no place for light. But what if this darkness is part of us? As we discussed earlier, the shadow, according to Carl Jung, is that part of our psyche which contains all that we reject, suppress, and fail to acknowledge in ourselves. It is a sort of dark twin, made up of our unacceptable desires, shameful feelings, negative character traits, traumatic memories, and all that does not fit into our conscious self-image and social persona. Imagine a large chest sitting in a dark corner of your soul. Every time you feel envy, anger, fear, selfishness, or any other emotion that seems bad or wrong, you quickly shove it into this chest and slam the lid shut. Over time, the chest fills to the brim, but its contents don't disappear. On the contrary, they begin to rot and emit an unpleasant odor, poisoning the atmosphere of your inner life. The shadow can manifest in many different ways. It might be sudden outbursts of anger that feel completely uncontrollable. It could be an inexplicable dislike for certain types of people who, it seems to you, possess exactly those qualities that you so carefully suppress in yourself. It might be a constant sense of guilt or shame, even when there are no obvious reasons for it. No one can step over their own shadow, Jung reminds us. Attempts to ignore or deny our shadow are doomed to fail. The repressed aspects of our personality do not disappear. They simply retreat into the unconscious, where they continue to influence our behavior and emotional reactions. Moreover, the harder we try to control our shadow, the more energy we expend on suppressing it, and the more vulnerable we become to its sudden eruptions. The shadow may include not only negative traits, but also those positive qualities that we once rejected or failed to develop in ourselves. For example, a person raised in an environment where weakness was deemed unacceptable may suppress their sensitivity and empathy, which will also become part of their shadow. As a result, they may struggle to form deep emotional connections. For creative individuals, the unacknowledged shadow can become a source of internal conflict and self-sabotage. Fear of self-expression, fear of criticism, insecurity about one's talent. These can all be manifestations of repressed aspects of their personality. Acknowledging and integrating these dark sides can, on the contrary, free their creative potential and give their work greater depth and authenticity. Reflect on those qualities that you most dislike in other people. Often, these qualities are a reflection of your own shadow. What irritates us most in others can be what we cannot accept in ourselves. This is a kind of mirror of the shadow that helps us see those aspects of our personality that we have been avoiding. Understanding that the shadow is not an evil to be eradicated, but an integral part of our psyche, is the first step toward its integration. The shadow contains not only destructive, but also creative, spontaneous, and life-giving energies. The task is not to rid ourselves of the shadow, but to acknowledge it, accept it, and learn to channel its energy into constructive directions. Chapter 4. The Projection of the Shadow. Seeing our flaws in others. We tend to see in others what we refuse to see in ourselves. This wise thought from Carl Jung perfectly describes the mechanism of shadow projection. Since the contents of our shadow are often painful or unacceptable to us, our psyche invents a clever defense mechanism. We unconsciously attribute these undesirable qualities to others. In this way, instead of recognizing envy, aggression, or selfishness in ourselves, we begin to see these traits in the people around us, often exaggerating them and distorting our perception of reality. Imagine a person who, deep inside, feels envy toward the success of others, but cannot admit it even to themselves. To avoid this uncomfortable feeling, they may begin to criticize the achievements of those around them, devaluing their success, finding faults, and attributing selfish motives to them. He's just a show-off. He just got lucky. He must have achieved this dishonestly. These thoughts may arise in their mind, allowing them to avoid confronting their own envy. The projection of the shadow can manifest in many different areas of our lives. In relationships with loved ones, in work environments, in interactions with strangers, and even in our attitudes toward entire social groups. We may criticize in others the very weaknesses that we are desperately trying to hide in ourselves. For example, a person who is afraid to express their aggression may be particularly intolerant of aggressive behavior in others. Someone who feels insecure may constantly criticize the self-confidence of others, perceiving it as arrogance. What irritates us in others may lead us to understand ourselves, Jung suggests. Our strong emotional reactions to certain qualities in others can be a valuable key to our own shadow. If someone's behavior provokes a particularly strong indignation or disgust in us, we should ask ourselves, is there something similar in me? Could this person be a mirror, reflecting aspects of my personality that I do not want to see? The projection of the shadow is not always negative. We can also project our unacknowledged positive qualities onto others. For example, a person who is unaware of their own creative potential may admire the talent of others, idealizing them and failing to notice their flaws. In this case, projection serves as a sort of clue to hidden resources within ourselves. However, more often than not, the projection of the shadow leads to the distortion of our perception and problems in relationships. We see others not as they truly are, but through the lens of our own unrecognized shadow. This can lead to misunderstandings, conflicts, and broken connections. We may blame others for what is, in fact, our own issue. Recognizing the mechanism of projection is an important step toward integrating the shadow. When we begin to notice our strong emotional reactions to certain qualities in others, we can ask ourselves, why does this bother me so much? Is there something like this in me? An honest answer to this question can mark the beginning of the process of accepting our shadow. Meeting with oneself is one of the most unpleasant experiences, Jung wrote. Acknowledging that the flaws we so vehemently criticize in others may also reside in us can be painful. However, it is this honesty that opens the path to true self-understanding and more mature, harmonious relationships with the world around us. By ceasing to project our shadow onto others, we begin to see them more objectively and, most importantly, gain a better understanding of ourselves. Chapter 5. Encountering the Shadow, the First Step Toward Integration. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. This profound observation by Carl Jung emphasizes the critical importance of becoming aware of the forces hidden deep within our psyche, including our shadow. Meeting our shadow is the first and perhaps the most important step toward its integration and, as a result, the attainment of inner wholeness. But how can we encounter that part of ourselves we have so long tried to ignore? First of all, it is essential to develop the ability for self-observation. Begin to carefully track your emotional reactions, especially those that seem excessive or disproportionate to the situation. Pay attention to the qualities in other people that provoke strong irritation or dislike in you. As we mentioned earlier, these may be projections of your own shadow. Ask yourself, why does this trait affect me so much? One powerful tool for meeting the shadow is dream analysis. Jung placed great importance on dreams as windows to the unconscious. The images, symbols, and characters that appear in our dreams are often projections of various aspects of our psyche, including the shadow. Pay attention to the negative characters in your dreams, those who evoke fear, aggression, or disgust in you. Try to understand what qualities they embody and whether these qualities could also be present in you. Keeping a journal can also be a valuable tool for encountering the shadow. Regularly write down your thoughts and feelings, especially those that make you uncomfortable or guilty. Be honest with yourself. Don't try to embellish your actions or justify your negative emotions. Allow these feelings to surface, even if they seem unacceptable. Art therapy, such as drawing, sculpting, or writing, can help bypass conscious resistance and give an outlet to those aspects of the shadow that are difficult to express in words. Allow yourself to freely express your feelings and fantasies without censoring them. The images and symbols that emerge through this creative process can provide valuable insights into the contents of your shadow. Meditation and mindfulness practices can help you cultivate the observation and non-judgmental acceptance of your inner experiences. By observing your thoughts and feelings without judgment, you create space for the shadow to emerge without immediately feeling the need to suppress it. There is no light without shadow, just as there is no wholeness without imperfection. Jung reminds us, encountering the shadow is not about finding blame or self-flagellation. It is rather an act of courage and honesty before oneself, recognizing that we are not perfect, that we have not only light but also dark sides, is a necessary step toward genuine self-acceptance. This process can be painful and uncomfortable. Encountering the aspects of ourselves that we have long rejected may be unpleasant. However, it is important to remember that avoiding our shadow does not make it weaker. On the contrary, it continues to secretly govern our lives. Only by recognizing and acknowledging our shadow can we begin to establish a healthier relationship with it and direct its energy in a constructive direction. The first step is always the hardest, but remember, you are not alone on this journey. Every person carries a shadow within them. The courage to face it is a sign of maturity and the quest for true selfhood. Chapter 6. Integration of the Shadow, Turning Darkness into Light. I would rather be a whole person than a good one. This profound thought by Carl Jung lies at the heart of the shadow integration process. Accepting our dark side does not mean indulging in our base instincts or justifying destructive behavior. The integration of the shadow is a conscious recognition of these aspects of our personality, understanding their origins, and finding constructive ways to engage with them. It is an alchemical process of transforming darkness into light, where unacknowledged energies become sources of strength and creativity. Imagine that your shadow is not an evil monster to be destroyed, but a wild, untamed beast living within you. If you constantly try to lock it in a cage, it will become more aggressive and unpredictable, and sooner or later, it will break free and cause harm. But if you try to understand this beast, tame it, and direct its energy in the right direction, it can become your loyal ally and a source of immense power. The integration of the shadow begins with taking responsibility for our dark sides. Instead of projecting them onto others or denying their existence, we admit, yes, I have envy, anger, fear, selfishness. These are part of me. This acknowledgement does not mean condoning destructive actions driven by these feelings, but it means accepting them as part of the reality of our inner life. How do we direct the shadow's energy constructively? One way is through consciously expressing suppressed feelings in a safe form. For example, instead of venting your anger on loved ones, you can express it through physical activity, creativity, or journaling. Envy can become a catalyst for personal growth and development if we channel this energy toward achieving our own goals rather than devaluing others' successes. Jung spoke about the importance of awareness of opposites. The shadow often contains traits that are the opposite of our conscious persona. For instance, a person who strives to be always rational and controlled may have impulsiveness and emotionality within their shadow. Integrating these opposites leads to greater flexibility, spontaneity, and richness in life. The shadow can also contain our unacknowledged talents and abilities. Those qualities we once rejected as impractical or unimportant may turn out to be valuable resources for our personal and professional growth. By meeting our shadow, we may uncover hidden treasures within it. The process of shadow integration requires time, patience, and self-compassion. One should not expect immediate results. There will be moments when the shadow manifests unexpectedly and unpleasantly. It is important to approach these manifestations with understanding and curiosity, not judgment. Ask yourself, what is this part of me trying to convey? What need is it expressing? Integration of the shadow is not a static state, but an ongoing process of self-discovery and growth. As we develop and change, the content of our shadow may also transform. It is important to remain open to exploring new aspects of ourselves and continue learning how to interact with our dark side. Know your dark sides to better see your light. This thought reflects a paradoxical truth. Accepting our shadow does not make us worse. On the contrary, it allows us to become more whole, stronger, and authentic. When we stop fighting ourselves, we release a tremendous amount of energy, which we can direct toward creativity, love, and self-actualization. Chapter 7. Overcoming Resistance. The Path Through Inner Conflict. What we hide from ourselves can remain in the shadows forever, and only by confronting it do we gain freedom. Carl Jung. The road to wholeness is not only about accepting ourselves, but also about facing the resistance that naturally arises when we confront our hidden parts. We all carry aspects of ourselves that we suppress or avoid, and this resistance often manifests as fear, shame, or insecurity. But to integrate our shadow, we must confront this resistance head-on, not run from it. Resistance isn't external. It's our own inner fear. We resist parts of ourselves we deem unworthy, fearing that by accepting them, we will destroy our idealized image. But the more we avoid our shadow, the more power we give it. Unconsciously, it creates inner conflict, manifesting as anxiety or emotional outbursts, and the more we fight it, the stronger it becomes. This inner conflict can be subtle at first, like a nagging unease. Over time, it can become intense, manifesting as strained relationships or sudden emotional explosions. But when we resist facing our shadow, the pain intensifies. By denying or justifying these aspects, we try to protect our self-image, but in doing so, we ignore our true complexity. The first step to overcoming this resistance is to recognize it. We must see that it's not our enemy but a defense mechanism, one born from fear and misunderstanding. Viewing resistance as a natural process rather than something to fight allows us to approach it with compassion and awareness. This is the key to transformation. To work through resistance, we must gradually explore the sources of conflict. This doesn't mean we must embrace the shadow immediately, but we must approach it with caution and curiosity. We don't seek instant fixes, but the courage to be honest with ourselves. Allow yourself to feel the discomfort. Recognize that within you, there are parts afraid of being judged, and it's these parts that can lead to growth. By accepting the discomfort, we begin to free ourselves from the fear of facing our shadow. A powerful tool in overcoming resistance is self-objectivity. Imagine standing outside yourself, observing your thoughts and emotions from a neutral perspective. This creates space between you and your inner turmoil, allowing you to view yourself with compassion and without judgment. By doing this, we can accept our shadow without fear, giving us the courage to move forward. Remember, facing resistance means facing your deepest fears and unmet needs. When we understand these parts of ourselves, we stop fighting against them. Instead, we work with them, discovering the power hidden within our shadow. Overcoming resistance is an ongoing process. We will fall back into old patterns and self-defense mechanisms, but this doesn't mean we've failed. It's simply a reminder that growth takes time. We must be gentle with ourselves during setbacks, as these moments are part of the journey. When we finally overcome resistance, we unlock the path to deeper self-acceptance. Free from fear, we can direct our energy toward creativity and meaningful relationships. Understanding resistance as a natural part of the process allows us to move forward with confidence, transforming our shadow into a source of power. So, when resistance arises, don't turn away. Face it with courage and compassion, and you will find that the path to liberation lies in embracing your shadow. Chapter 8. Wholeness as the Path to the Self. Our journey into the depths of Jungian psychology, exploring the mysterious world of our shadow, has come to an end. We have moved from the realization of its invisible presence to understanding its potential as a source of creativity and strength. We have seen how our striving for perfection and conformity to social expectations leads to the splitting off and suppression of a whole part of our personality, the very shadow which, when ignored, silently influences our lives, creating inner conflicts and a sense of incompleteness. We have learned that the shadow is not an evil to be eradicated, but an inseparable part of our human nature, a repository not only of negative traits, but also of unexpressed talents and life energy. We examined the insidious mechanism of projection, when we unconsciously attribute to others what we cannot recognize in ourselves, distorting our perception and complicating relationships. The most important discovery has been the understanding that meeting and integrating the shadow is not a painful sentence, but a bold and necessary step toward true wholeness. By accepting our dark side, we stop wasting energy on its suppression and gain access to its hidden resources. We become more authentic, more spontaneous, and more capable of deep and sincere relationships. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate, as Carl Jung reminds us. Wholeness is not the absence of inner contradictions, but the ability to be aware of and accept all aspects of our personality, both light and dark. It is a dance between our conscious aspirations and unconscious impulses, where each part has its meaning and value. The integration of the shadow is an ongoing process of self-awareness and self-acceptance. This journey will inevitably involve difficulties and revelations. There will be moments when our shadow manifests in unexpected ways, causing embarrassment or discomfort. It is important to remember that this is not a defeat, but merely a reminder that the work on oneself continues. Allow yourself to be imperfect. Accept your weaknesses and flaws as part of your uniqueness. Explore your dark corners with curiosity and compassion, not with judgment. It is in these unacknowledged areas that your greatest strengths and untapped potential may be hidden. Creativity can become your faithful ally on this path. Give voice to your suppressed feelings and impulses through art, writing, music, or any other form of self-expression. Allow your shadow to become the source of your inspiration and your unique perspective. Ultimately, accepting your shadow is an act of self-love in all its fullness. It is the abandonment of the illusion of perfection and the recognition of your human nature, with all its complexities and contradictions. It is the path to authentic selfhood, inner harmony, and a more conscious and fulfilled life. Take the first step toward your shadow. Gaze into its depths with courage and curiosity. Accept it as an inseparable part of yourself, and you will discover that instead of a monster hiding in the darkness, you will find a valuable ally on the path to wholeness and the true self. Thank you for staying with us until the end. Please don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel. Your support truly helps us grow. We appreciate it so much.